Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage and the Rover. Thank you for all the comments on the previous video about the vibrations. I'm working on that. I have read all the comments and I'm gonna try to see if I can find it. Currently, I'm actually back at suspecting something with those brake discs. Anything else just doesn't make much sense in my world. Anyway, that will be later. In this video, I want to address the issue with the very high reading, hopefully address it, with the very high reading on the instrument cluster. It shows it's very hot when driving around, and I think it's the sensor. Everything else seems to be just fine. The engine doesn't seem to be hot or anything. So I bought a new sensor, and what I want to do is to begin with is to just test the new sensor before I fit it and see what that reads in the instrument cluster at around 80 degrees or something like that. So I want to find the wires for that, undo it, and then try to do some testing before I actually change it, because it could also be the instrument cluster, the sensor in there, that is somehow faulty. So there are two sensors down there. I don't know if I can actually film them. Probably be a bit dark. I think you can see one of the connectors going into the engine right there. There are two of them. One of them is for the ECU, and one of them is for the sensor. So I am going to find that and unplug it. There we go. It's disconnected. And what I want to do is to put a extension on that wiring right there. So with this one connected to the wiring loom that connects to the sensor, and this one connected to ground somewhere like this, I should get a reading of completely extremely hot engine straight away. So let's put the ignition on and take a look at that sensor. Yeah, it's reading hot, and as hot as it gets. I'm just going to switch the light on. So we know that the wiring is at least working, and it's reading very hot when the sensor is grounded. And the way the sensor works on the temperature is it's not grounded when it's cold, and then it gets more and more grounded. The resistance gets lower and lower, and then it will rise up. So now I can actually test the new sensor and see what that reads before installing it, to be sure that it works. And the way I'm going to do that is, so I got a pot of boiling water, and this is not a very scientific test because I'm not going to measure how hot it is right now, but I know it's just been boiling. And then I'm just going to heat up the sensor in the boiling water, because it's not grounded outright, so I can't just test it while it's in the water. But now the sensor itself is heated up, and if I just place that on the block so it's grounded out like this, I should get a reading in there. So yeah, I say that this reading is going to make sense. I think it's safe to say that it works. So I'm just going to put that sensor in, and then if the reading is still very hot, then there is actually a problem. But I really don't think there is. And I will just attempt to do that a little bit quickly, because of course coolant will try to escape this thing. There we go. Tighten that up. I'm going to fire this engine up and see what happens when it comes up to temperature. I'm just going to let it run until the fan kicks in, and then see what the temperature reads, because that should be very much in the red according to the old sensor. Okay, the car has been idling for 20 minutes now, and it still hasn't kicked in the fan. It's just but let's take a look at the reading. Yeah, it's getting up there, but not at all as hot as before. But I think it should start that radiator fan now. the fan just started. This took more than 20 minutes, I think maybe even 25 minutes. It is reading high, but not as high as before, because before it had to go above the red. It's not in the red, but it is rather high. But it is way better than before, and as you can see, it's dropping down quite rapidly now that the radiator fan is kicked in. I think I just have to drive this and see, because before it would be running up here in normal driving conditions. And if I switch this, and if I switch the heater off, which is off at the moment, it will skyrocket above the red. So this is way better. You can see it's dropped down. It's still reading a bit high, I think, but now I think we can trust that reading. But as mentioned, it has been idling for a long time, and maybe that fan is kicking in a bit late. I don't know, but yeah, I'm gonna take it for a drive and see if it's all right. And out on the road, the temperature instantly drops to a level that you expect it to be at, right in the middle of the gauge. And currently the heater is set to a cold air, and with the old sensor it wasn't possible to have the needle below the red line unless the heater was on, as mentioned. So all in all, the car was not overheating at all. It was just the sensor that was bad. So that was one thing ticked off the list. Oh, that's shaking. Needs to be checked off next, I hope. There's also some bearing noise, but I'm getting there. And besides that shaking, which makes the car quite unpleasant to drive, this car's really fun, and I'm looking forward to fix that, because driving this on twisty roads are a lot of fun until you hit the brakes. It just destroys it completely. Take a look at that temperature now that I'm driving at speed. It's actually below the middle, which is maybe even a little bit lower than expected. This is fixed. It's just fixed. That's nice. I think you can feel the shaking now. I'm back to looking at those discs as mentioned, because even though the runout seems to be acceptable, as many others has mentioned, it could be the thickness of the disc. And that's what I'm gonna pursue next, because it's not really shaking under normal driving, not even at speed, maybe a little bit. And I would probably think the shaking at speeds is down to wheel balancing that is not perfect, which is not surprising. But that shaking under braking is so much more intense, and it just feels so much like a warped disc. But maybe it's just thickness variation. And remember, there was something wrong with that hub that made the runout quite extreme. So maybe, even though the discs are quite new, maybe they were destroyed just by that warpage and made the disc thinner at some points. So that is what I'm going to pursue next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.